Imrau Laquais. Imrau Laquais, king of the Arabs, was very handsome, and a poet full of love songs. Women loved him desperately. Everyone loved him, but there came one night an experience that changed him completely. He left his kingdom and his family. He put on dervish robes and wandered from one weather, one landscape to another. Love dissolved his king self and led him to Tabuk, where he worked for a time making bricks. Someone told the king of Tabuk about Imra'u Luqais, and that king went to visit him at night. King of the Arabs, handsome Joseph of this age, ruler of two empires, one composed of territories, and the other of the beauty of women, if you would consent to stay with me, I would be honored. You abandon kingdoms because you want more than kingdoms. The king of Tabuk went on like this, praising Imra'u Luqais and talking theology and philosophy. Imra'u Luqais kept silent. Then suddenly he learned and whispered something in the second king's ear, and that second king became a wanderer too. They walked out of town hand in hand. No royal belts, no thrones. This is what love does and continues to do. Tastes like honey to adults and milk to children. Love is the last 30-pound bale. When you load it on, the boat tips over. So they wandered around China like birds, pecking at bits of grain. They rarely spoke because of the dangerous seriousness of the secret they knew. That love secret, spoken pleasantly or in irritation, severs 100,000 heads in one swing. A love line grazes in the soul's pasture, while the scimitar of this secret approaches. It's a killing better than any living. All that world power wants, really, is this weakness. So these kings talked in low tones and carefully. Only God knows what they said. They used unsayable words, bird language, but some people have imitated them, learned a few bird calls, and gotten prestigious. All rivers at once. Don't unstring the bow. I am your four-feathered arrow that has not yet been used. I am a strong knife-blade word, not some if or maybe, dissolving in air. I am sunlight slicing the dark. Who made this night? Forged deep in the earth mud. What is the body? Endurance. What is love? Gratitude. What is hidden in our chests? Laughter. What else? Compassion. Let the beloved be a hat pulled down firmly on my head, or drawstrings pulled and tied around my chest. Someone asks, how does love have hands and feet? Love is the sprouting bed for hands and feet. Your father and mother were playing love games. They came together and you appeared. Don't ask what love can make or do. Look at the colors of the world, the river water moving in all rivers at once, the truth that lives in Sham's face. The blocked road. I wish I knew what you wanted. You block the road and won't give me rest. You pull my lead rope one way, then the other. You act cold, my darling. Do you hear what I say? Will this night of talking ever end? Why am I still embarrassed and timid about you? You are thousands. You are one. Quiet, but most articulate. Your name is spring. Your name is wine. Your name is the nausea that comes from wine. You are my doubting and the light points in my eyes. You are every image, and yet I am homesick for you. Can I get there, where the deer pounces on the line, where the one I'm after's after me? This drum and these words keep pounding. Let them both smash through their coverings into silence. A babbling child. If my words are not saying what you would say, slap my face. Discipline me as a loving mother does a babbling child caught up in nonsense. Thirsty man runs into the sea, and the sea holds a sword to his throat. A lily looks at a bank of roses, and wilts and says nothing. I am a tambourine. Don't put me aside till the fast dancing starts. Play me some all along. Help me with these little sounds. Joseph is most beautiful when he's completely naked, but his shirt gives you an idea. as the body lets you glimpse the glitter on the water of the soul. Even if the corpse washes binds my jaw shut, you'll still hear this song coming out of my dead silence. Who sees inside from outside? Who finds hundreds of mysteries even where minds are deranged? See through his eyes what he sees. Who then is looking out from his eyes? Constant conversation. Who's luckiest in this whole orchestra? The reed. Its mouth touches your lips to learn music. All reeds, sugar-cane especially, think only of this chance. They sway in the cane breaks, free in the many ways they dance. Without you the instruments would die. One sits close beside you, another takes a long kiss. The tambourine begs, touch my skin so I can be myself. Let me feel you enter each limb bone by bone, that what died last night can be whole today. Why live some sober way and feel you ebbing out? I won't do it. Either give me enough wine or leave me alone, now that I know how it is to be with you in a constant conversation. Bonfire at midnight. A shout comes out of my room, where I've been cooped up. After all my lust and dead living, I can still live with you. You want me to. You you fix and bring me food. You forget the way I've been. The ocean moves and surges in the heat of the middle of the day, in the heat of this thought I'm having. Why aren't all human resistances burning up with this thought? It's a drum and arms waving. It's a bonfire at midnight on the top edge of a hill. This meeting again with you. In between stories. Turn from the ocean now, toward dry land. When you're with children, talk about toys. From playthings, little by little, they reach into deeper wisdom and clarity. Gradually, they lose interest in their toys. They have a sense of wholeness in them already. If they were completely demented, they wouldn't play at all. Did you hear that? It's the man who was looking for treasure. He wants me to finish his story. You didn't hear him? Then he must be inside me yelling, "Over here! Come over here!" Don't think of him as a seeker, though. Whatever he's looking for, he is that himself. How can a lover be anything but the beloved? Every second he's bowing into a mirror. If he could see for just a second one molecule of what's there without fantasizing about it, he'd explode. His imagination and he himself would vanish, with all his knowledge obliterated into a new birth, a perfectly clear view, a voice that says, "I am God." That same voice told the angels to bow to Adam, because they were identical with Adam. It's the voice that first said, "There is no reality but God. There is only God." Husam pulls me by the ear now. Wash your mouth. By trying to say these things you conceal them. Just finish telling the story about the dervish who was looking for treasure. Your listeners love difficulties, not unity. Talk about world troubles. Don't distribute water from the fountain. They don't want that. In fact, they've loaded themselves with dirt clods to clog up the fountain. They'd like to shut it off. We are listeners as well as speakers of this mystery, both of us. But who else would join this strange companionship? That's what Husam wants to know. One dervish to another, "What was your vision of God's presence?" "I haven't seen anything. But for the sake of conversation, I'll tell you a story. God's presence is there in front of me. Fire on the left. A lovely stream on the right. One group walks toward the fire, into the fire, another toward the sweet flowing water. No one knows which are blessed and which not. Whoever walks into the fire appears suddenly in the stream. The head goes under the water surface. That head pokes out of the fire. Most people guard against going into the fire, and so end up in it. Those who love the water of pleasure and make it their devotion are cheated with this reversal. The trickery goes further. The voice of the fire tells the truth, saying, "I am not fire. I am fountainhead. Come into me and don't mind the sparks." If you are a friend of God, fire is your water. You should wish to have 100,000 sets of moth wings, so you could burn them away one set a night. The moth sees light and goes into fire. You should see fire and go toward light. Fire is what of God is world-consuming. Water, world-protecting. Somehow each gives the appearance of the other. To these eyes you have now what looks like water burns. What looks like fire is a great relief to be inside. You've seen a magician make a bowl of rice seem a dish full of tiny live worms. Before an assembly, with one breath he made the floor swarm with scorpions that weren't there. How much more amazing God's tricks! Generation after generation lies down, defeated they sink, but they're like a woman underneath a man, circling him. One molecule, mote second thinking of God's reversal of comfort and pain is better than any attending ritual. That splinter of intelligence is substance. The fire and water themselves, accidental, done with mirrors. The music. For 60 years I have been forgetful. Every minute, but not for a second, has this flowing toward me stopped or slowed. I deserve nothing. Today I recognize that I am the guest the mystics talk about. I play this living music for my host. Every day, everything today is for the host. I saw you last night in the gathering, but could not take you openly in my arms, so I put my lips next to your cheek, pretending to talk privately. The tent. Outside the freezing desert night, this other night inside grows warm kindling. Let the landscape be covered with thorny crust. We have a soft garden in here, the continents blasted, cities and little towns, everything become a scorched, blackened ball. The news we hear is full of grief for that future. The real news inside here is there's no news at all. Friend, our closeness is this. Anywhere you put your foot, feel me in the firmness under you. How is it with this love? I see your world and not you. Listen to presences inside poems. Let them take you where they will. Follow those private hints, and never leave the premises. Being a lover, the sunrise ruby. On being a lover. Being a lover is close to being a worker. When the ruby becomes the sunrise, its transparency changes to a daily discipline. There's a story about a Sufi who rips his robe and gives it the name Faraji, which means ripped open, or happiness, or one who brings the joy of being opened. It comes from the stem Faraj, which also refers to the genitals, male and female. The Sufi's teacher sees the purity of the name in the action, while others notice only his ragged appearance. Peace and compassion come as coverings are thrown open, and the streaming beauty of emotion flows through the lover-worker. Rumi suggests in another poem that being human is a guest house, where travelers are welcomed and entertained. The work is to be a good host at the Caravanserai. The sunrise ruby. In the early morning hour just before dawn, lover and beloved wake and take a drink of water. She asks, "Do you love me or yourself more? Really, tell the absolute truth." He says, "There's nothing left of me. I'm like a ruby held up to the sunrise. Is it still a stone, or a world made of redness? It has no resistance to sunlight." This is how Halaj said, "I am God," and told the truth. The ruby and the sunrise are one. Be courageous and discipline yourself. Completely become hearing and ear, and wear this sun ruby as an earring. Work. Keep digging your well. Don't think about getting off from work. Water is there somewhere. Submit to a daily practice. Your loyalty to that is a ring on the door. Keep knocking, and the joy inside will eventually open a window and look out to see who's there. Water from your spring. What was in that candle's light that opened and consumed me so quickly? Come back, my friend. The form of our love is not a created form. Nothing can help me but that beauty. There was a dawn I remember when my soul heard something from your soul. I drank water from your spring and felt the current take me. You sweep the door. you sweep the floor. The Lord of beauty enters the soul as a man walks into an orchard in spring. Come into me that way again. Light the lamp in the eye of Joseph. Cure Jacob's sadness. Though you never left, come and sit down here and ask, why are you so confused? Like a fresh idea in an artist's mind, you fashion things before they come into being. You sweep the floor like the man who keeps the doorway. When you brush a form clean, it becomes what it truly is. You guard your silence perfectly, like a water bag that doesn't leak. You live where Shams lives, because your heart donkey was strong enough to take you there. Each note. Advice doesn't help lovers. They're not the kind of mountain stream you can build a dam across. An intellectual doesn't know what the drunk is feeling. Don't try to figure what those lost inside love will do next. Someone in charge would give up all his power if he caught one whiff of the wine musk from the room where the lovers are doing who knows what. One of them tries to dig a hole through a mountain. One flees from academic honors. One laughs at famous mustaches. Life freezes if it doesn't get a taste of this almond cake. The stars come up spinning every night, bewildered in love. They'd grow tired with that revolving if they weren't. They'd say, how long do we have to do this? God picks up the reed flute world and blows. Each note is a need coming through one of us, a passion, a longing pain. Remember the lips where the wind breath originated. And let your note be clear. Don't try to end it. Be your note. I'll show you how it's enough. Go up on the roof at night in the city of the soul. Let everyone climb on the roofs and sing their notes. Sing loud. Granite and wine glass. You are granite. I am an empty wine glass. You know what happens when we touch? You laugh like the sun coming up laughs at a star that disappears into it. Patience and rational considerations leave, only passion stays, whimpering and feverish. Some men fall down in the road like dregs thrown out. Then, totally reckless, the next morning they gallop out with new purposes. Love is the reality, and poetry is the drum. That calls us to that. Don't keep complaining about loneliness. Let the fear language of that theme crack open and float away. Let the priest come down from his tower and not go back up. Buoyancy. Love has taken away my practices and filled me with poetry. I tried to keep quietly repeating, no strength but yours, but I couldn't. I had to clap and sing. I used to be respectable and chaste and stable, but who can stand in this strong wind and remember those things? Mountain keeps an echo deep inside itself. That's how I hold your voice. I am scrap wood thrown in your fire and quickly reduced to smoke. I saw you and became empty. This emptiness, more beautiful than existence, it obliterates existence, and yet when it comes, existence thrives and creates more existence. The sky is blue. The world is a blind man squatting on the road. But whoever sees your emptiness sees beyond blue, and beyond the blind man. A great soul hides like Muhammad or Jesus, moving through a crowd in a city where no one knows him. To praise is to praise how one surrenders to the emptiness. To praise the sun is to praise your own eyes. Praise the ocean, what we say a little ship. So the sea journey goes on, and who knows where. Just to be held by the ocean is the best luck we could have. It's a total waking up. Why should we grieve that we've been sleeping? Doesn't matter how long we've been unconscious. We're groggy, but let the guilt go. Feel the motions of tenderness around you, the buoyancy. Music Master. You that love lovers, this is your home. Welcome. In the midst of making form, love made this form that melts form, with love for the door, soul the vestibule. Watch the dust grains moving in the light near the window. Their dance is our dance. We rarely hear the inward music, but we're all dancing to it nevertheless, directed by the one who teaches us the pure joy of the sun, our music master. When I am with you, we stay up all night. When you're not here, I can't go to sleep. Praise God for these two insomnias and the difference between them. The minute I heard my first love story, I started looking for you, not knowing how blind that was. Lovers don't finally meet somewhere, they're in each other all along. We are the mirror as well as the face in it. We are tasting the taste this minute of eternity. We are pain and what cures pain both. We are the sweet cold water in the jar that pours. I want to hold you close like a lute, so we can cry out with loving. You would rather throw stones at a mirror? I am your mirror, and here are the stones. Someone digging in the ground. An eye is meant to see things. A soul is here for its own joy. A head has one use, for loving, a true love. Legs, to run after. Love is for vanishing into the sky. The mind, for learning what men have done and tried to do. Mysteries are not to be solved. The eye goes blind when it only wants to see why. A lover is always accused of something, but when he finds his love, whatever he lost in the looking comes back completely changed. On the way to Mecca, many dangers. Thieves, the blowing sand, only camel's milk to drink. Still each pilgrim kisses the black stone there with pure longing, feeling in the surface the taste of the lips he wants. This talk is like stamping new coins. They pile up while the real work is done outside by someone digging in the ground. The phrasing must change. Learn about your inner self from those who know such things, but don't repeat verbatim what they say. Zuleika, let everything be the name of Joseph, from celery seed to aloes wood. She loved him so much she concealed his name in many different phrases, the inner meanings known only to her. When she said, "The wax is softening near the fire," she meant, "My love is wanting me." Or if she said, "Look, the moon is up," or "The willow has new leaves," or "The branches are trembling," or "The coriander seeds have caught fire," or "The roses are opening," or "The king is in a good mood today," or "Isn't that lucky?" or "The furniture needs dusting," or "The water carrier is here," or "It's almost daylight," or "These vegetables are perfect," or "The bread needs more salt," or "The clouds seem to be moving against the wind," or "My head hurts," or "My head aches better." Anything she praises, it's Joseph's touch she means. Any complaint, it's his being away. When she's hungry, it's for him. Thirsty, his name is a sherbet. Cold, he's a fur. This is what the friend can do when one is in such love. Sensual people use the holy names often, but they don't work for them. The miracle Jesus did by being the name of God, Zuleika felt in the name of Joseph. When one is united to the core of another, to speak of that is to breathe the name Hu, empty of self and filled with love. As the saying goes, the pot drips what is in it. The saffron spice of connecting, laughter, the onion smell of separation, crying. Others have many things in people they love. This is not the way of friend and friend. The guest house. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. The pickaxe, getting to the treasure beneath the foundation. On the pickaxe, One view of identity is that it's a structure made of what we identify with. Rumi says that identity must be torn down, completely demolished along with its little tailoring shop, the patch sewing of eating and drinking consolations. Inner work is not all ecstatic surrender. Don't listen too often. Rumi advises to the comforting part of the self that gives you what you want. Pray instead for a tough instructor. Nothing less than the radical disassembling of what we've wanted and gotten, and what we still wish for, allows us to discover the value of true being that lies underneath. The pickaxe, for Rumi, represents whatever does this fierce attention work, clear discernment, a teacher's presence, simple strength, and honesty with oneself. The pickaxe dismantles the illusory personality and finds two glints in the dirt. Like eyes they are, but these jewels, lights, are not personal. Rumi points to a treasure within our lives unconnected to experience. It is intrinsic, beyond calculation, a given, reached after the ego is cleared away and a one-pointedness digs under the premises. Who makes these changes? Who makes these changes? I shoot an arrow right. It lands left. I ride after a deer and find myself chased by a hog. I plot to get what I want and end up in prison. I dig pits to trap others and fall in. I should be suspicious of what I want. Why wine is forbidden. When the prophet's ray of intelligence struck the dim-witted man he was with, the man got very happy and talkative. Soon he began unmannerly raving. This is the problem with a selfishness that comes quickly as with wine. If the wine drinker has a deep gentleness in him, he will show that when drunk. But if he has hidden anger and arrogance, those appear, and since most people do, wine is forbidden to everyone. On Resurrection Day. On Resurrection Day, your body testifies against you. Your hand says, I stole money. Your lips, I said meanness. Your feet, I went where I shouldn't. Your genitals, me too. They will make your praying sound hypocritical. Let the body's doing speak openly now, without your saying a word. As the students walking behind a teacher says, this one knows more clearly than I the way. The dream that must be interpreted. This place is a dream. Only a sleeper considers it real. Then death comes like dawn, and you wake up laughing at what you thought was your grief. But there's a difference with this dream. Everything cruel and unconscious done in the illusion of the present world. All that does not fade away at the death waking. It stays, and it must be interpreted. All the mean laughing, all the quick sexual wanting, those torn coats of Joseph, they change into powerful wolves that you must face. The retaliation that sometimes comes now, the swift payback hit, is just a boy's game to what the other will be. You know about circumcision here, it's full castration there. In this groggy time we live, this is what it's like. A man goes to sleep in the town where he has always lived, and he dreams he's living in another town. In the dream, he doesn't remember the town he's sleeping in his bed in. He believes the reality of the dream town. The world is that kind of sleep. The dust of many crumbled cities settles over us like a forgetful doze. But we are older than those cities. We begin as a mineral. We emerged into plant life and into the animal state, then into being human, and always we have forgotten our former states, except in early spring when we slightly recall being green again. That's how a young person turns toward a teacher. That's how a baby leans towards the breast, without knowing the secret of its desire, yet turning instinctively. Humankind is being led along an evolving course, through this migration of intelligences, and though we seem to be sleeping, there's an inner wakefulness that directs the dream, and that will eventually startle us back to the truth of who we are. The pickaxe. Some commentary on I was a hidden treasure, and I desired to be known. Tear down this house. 100,000 new houses can be built from the transparent yellow carnelian buried beneath it, and the only way to get to that is to do the work of demolishing and then digging under the foundations. With that value in hand, all the new construction will be done without effort, and anyway, sooner or later this house will fall on its own. The jewel treasure will be uncovered, but it won't be yours then. The buried wealth is your pay for doing the demolition. The pick and shovel work. If you wait and just let it happen, you'd bite your hand and say, "I didn't do as I knew I should have." This is a rented house. You don't own the deed. You have a lease, and you've set up a little shop, where you barely make a living sewing patches on torn clothing. Yet only a few feet underneath are two veins, pure red and bright gold carnelian. Quick! Take the pickaxe and pry the foundation. You've got to quit this seamstress work. What does the patch sewing mean, you ask? Eating and drinking. The heavy cloak of the body is always getting torn. You patch it with food and other restless ego satisfactions. Rip up one board from the shop floor and look into the basement. You'll see two glints in the dirt. Zikr. A naked man jumps in the river, hornets swarming above him. The water is the zikr, remembering there is no reality but God. There is only God. The hornets are his sexual remembering. This woman, that woman. Or if a woman, this man, that. The head comes up, they sting. Breathe water, become river head to foot. Hornets leave you alone then. Even if you're far from the river, they pay no attention. No one looks for stars when the sun's out. A person blended into God does not disappear. He or she is just completely soaked in God's qualities. Do you need a quote from the Quran? All shall be brought into our presence. Join those travelers. The lamps we burn go out, some quickly. Some last till daybreak. Some are dim, some intense, all fed with fuel. If a light goes out in one house, that doesn't affect the next house. This is the story of the animal soul, not the divine soul. The sun shines on every house. When it goes down, all houses get dark. Light is the image of your teacher. Your enemies love the dark. A spider weaves a web over a light. Out of himself or herself makes a veil. Don't try to control a wild horse by grabbing its leg. Take hold the neck. Use a bridle. Be sensible. Then ride. There is a need for self-denial. Don't be contemptuous of old obediences. They help. The core of masculinity. The core of masculinity does not derive from being male, nor friendliness from those who console. Your old grandmother says, "Maybe you shouldn't go to school. You look a little pale." Run when you hear that. Your father's stern slaps are better. Your bodily soul wants comforting. The severe father wants spiritual clarity. He scolds, but eventually leads you into the open. Pray for a tough instructor to hear and act and stay within you. We have been busy accumulating solace. Make us afraid of how we were. I honor those who try to rid themselves of any lying, who empty the self, and have only clear being there. Dervish at the door. A dervish knocked at a house to ask for a piece of dry bread, or moist, it didn't matter. "This is not a bakery," said the owner. "Might you have a bit of gristle, then? Does this look like a butcher shop? A little flour? Do you hear a grinding stone? Some water? This is not a well." Whatever the dervish asked for, the man made some tired joke and refused to give him anything. Finally, the dervish ran in the house, lifted his robe, and squatted as though to take a shit. "Hey, hey!" "Quiet, you sad man. A deserted place is a fine spot to relieve oneself. And since there's no living thing here, or means of living, needs fertilizing." The dervish began his own list of questions and answers. "What kind of bird are you? not a falcon trained for the royal hand, not a peacock painted with everyone's eyes, not a parrot that talks for sugar cubes, not a nightingale that sings like someone in love, not a hoopoe bringing messages to Solomon, or a stork that builds on a cliffside. What exactly do you do? You are not known species. You haggle and make jokes to keep what you own for yourself. You have forgotten the one who doesn't care about ownership, who doesn't try to turn a profit from every human exchange. Art is flirtation with surrender, wanting new silk harp strings. The design on the curtains is not what they conceal. Artists love shapes for enclosure. The chained cup beside the waterfall is a way of tasting the waterfall, and maybe even the presence of someone meditating in the cave behind it. Forms keep splitting their chrysalis, but the old harper wants one more set of silk strings. Some Sufis have seen the beauties of art as something that can slow down soul growth. Art gives a teasing taste of surrender without the full experience. Beautiful poetry can keep one on the verge of the oceanic annihilation in God. Rumi says, "We've been walking in the surf holding our robes up, when we should be diving naked under and deeper under." Omar and the old poet. The harper had grown old. His voice was choked, sounding and harsh, and some of his harp strings were broken. He went to the graveyard at Medina and wept, "Lord, you've always accepted counterfeit coins from me. Take these prayers again, and give me enough to buy new silk strings for my harp." He put the harp down for a pillow and went to sleep. The bird of his soul escaped, free of the body and the grieving, flying in a vast, simple region that was itself, where it could sing its truth. I love this having no head, this tasting without mouth, this memory without regret. How without hands I gather rose and basil on an infinitely stretching out plain that is my joy. So this water-bird plunged into its ocean. Job's fountain, where Job was healed of all afflictions, the pure sunrise. If this Mathnawi were suddenly sky, it could not hold half the mystery that this old poet was enjoying in sleep. If there were a clear way into that, no one would stay here. The Caliph Omar, meanwhile, was napping nearby, and a voice came, "Give 700 gold dinars to the man sleeping in the cemetery." Everyone understands this voice when it comes. It speaks with the same authority to Turk and Kurd, Persian, Arab, Ethiopian. One language. Omar went to the place and sat by the sleeping man. Omar sneezed, and the poet sprang up, thinking this great man was there to accuse him. "No, sit here beside me. I have a secret to tell you. There is gold enough in the sack to buy new silk strings for your instrument. Take it, buy them, and come back here." The old poet heard and realized the generosity that had come. He threw the harp on the ground and broke it. These songs, breathed by breath, have kept me minding the musical modes of Iraq and the rhythms of Persia. The minor Zirafgand, the liquid freshness of the 24 melodies. These have distracted me while caravan after caravan was leaving. My poems have kept me in myself, which was the greatest gift to me, that now I surrender back. When someone is counting out gold for you, don't look at your hands or the gold. Look at the giver. But even this wailing recrimination, said Omar, is just another shape for enclosure, another joint on the reed. Pierce the segments and be hollow, with perforated walls so flute music can happen. Don't be a searcher wrapped in the importance of his quest. Repent of your repenting. The old man's heart woke, no longer in love with treble and bass, without weeping or laughter. In the true bewilderment of the soul he went out beyond any seeking, beyond words and telling, drowned in the beauty, drowned beyond deliverance. Waves cover the old man. Nothing more can be said of him. He has shaken out his robe, and there's nothing in it any more. There's a chase where a falcon dives into the forest and doesn't come back up. Every moment the sunlight is totally empty and totally full. An Egypt that doesn't exist. I want to say words that flame as I say them, but I keep quiet and don't try to make both worlds fit in one mouthful. I keep secret in myself an Egypt that doesn't exist. Is that good or bad? I don't know. For years I gave away sexual love with my eyes. Now I don't. I'm not in any one place. I don't have a name for what I give away. Whatever Shams gave, that you can have from me. Chinese art and Greek art. The prophet said, "There are some who see me by the same light in which I am seeing them. Our natures are one." Without reference to any strands of lineage, without reference to texts or traditions, we drink the life water together. Here's a story about that hidden mystery. The Chinese and the Greeks were arguing as to who were the better artists. The king said, "We'll settle this matter with a debate." The Chinese began talking, but the Greeks wouldn't say anything. They left. The Chinese suggested then that they each be given a room to work on with their artistry, 2 rooms facing each other and divided by a curtain. The Chinese asked the king for 100 colors, all the variations, and each morning they came to where the dyes were kept and took them all. The Greeks took no colors. They're not part of our work. They went to their room and began cleaning and polishing the walls. All day, every day, they made those walls as pure and clear as an open sky. There is a way that leads from all colors to colorlessness. Know that the magnification variety of the clouds and the weather comes from the total simplicity of the sun and the moon. The Chinese finished, and they were so happy. They beat the drums in the joy of completion. The king entered the room, astonished by the gorgeous color and detail. The Greeks then pulled the curtain dividing the rooms. The Chinese figures and images shimmeringly reflected on the clear Greek walls. They lived there, even more beautifully, and always changing in the light. The Greek art is the Sufi way. They don't study books of philosophical thought. They make their loving clearer and clearer. No wantings, no anger. In that purity they receive and reflect the images of every moment, from here, from the stars, from the void. They take them in as though they were seeing with the lighted clarity that sees them. In your light I learn how to love. In your beauty, how to make poems. You dance inside my chest, where no one sees you. But sometimes I do. And that sight becomes this art. Drum sound rises on the air. Its throb, my heart. A voice inside the beat says, "I know you are tired, but come. This is the way." Are you jealous of the ocean's generosity? Why would you refuse to give this joy to anyone? Fish don't hold the sacred liquid in cups. They swim the huge fluid freedom. Union, gnats inside the wind. On union there is a great feminine wisdom in these poems. A Jamal quality as opposed to Jalal. Many of the images of what it's like to be in union have this tone to them. A baby at the mother's breast, a river moving inside the personal fish, taking it to the ocean. Gnats lost in the wind, a dead donkey that has completely melded with a salt flat. The archery champion who lets the arrow fall where he stands. These are not heroic, questing images. What is it to praise? Be particles. During a night of tornadic wind and lightning everywhere, weather in North Georgia, a friend murmured, "Where do hummingbirds go in this?" The next morning the hummingbirds, the same ones, were back fussing at the theater. They know a hiding trick the gnats don't. I think sometimes that poems can be places to hide. Opus Thodemal, robe closets simulating the experiences they celebrate. What is the soul? Consciousness. Gnats inside the wind. Some gnats come from the grass to speak with Solomon. O Solomon, you are the champion of the oppressed. You give justice to the little guys. And they don't get any littler than us. We are tiny metaphors for frailty. Can you defend us? Who has mistreated you? Our complaint is against the wind. "Well," says Solomon, "you have pretty voices, you gnats, but remember a judge cannot listen to just one side. I must hear both litigants." "Of course," agree the gnats. "Summon the east wind," calls out Solomon, and the wind arrives almost immediately. What happened to the gnat plaintiffs? Gone. Such is the way of every seeker who comes to complain at the high court. When the presence of God arrives, where are the seekers? First there's dying, then union, like gnats inside the wind. Meadow sounds. We've come again to that knee of sea-coast no ocean can reach. Tie together all human intellects, they won't stretch to hear. The sky bares its neck so beautifully, but gets no kiss, only a taste. This is the food that everyone wants, wandering the wilderness. Please give us your manna and quail. We're here again with the beloved. This air a shout. These meadow sounds an astonishing myth. We've come into the presence of the one who was never apart from us. When the water bag is filling, you know the water carrier's here. The bag leans lovingly against your shoulder. Without you, I have no knowledge, no way to touch anyone. When someone chews sugar cane, he's wanting this sweetness. Inside this globe the soul roars like thunder, and now silence my strict tutor. I won't try to talk about shams. Language cannot touch that presence. Ayaz and the king's pearl. One day the king assembled his courtiers. He handed the minister a glowing pearl. What would you say this is worth? More gold than 100 donkeys could carry. Break it. Sir, how could I waste your resources like that? The king presented him with a robe of honor for his answer and took back the pearl. He talked a while to the assembly on various topics. Then he put the pearl in the chamberlain's hand. What would it sell for? Half a kingdom, God preserve it. Break it. My hand could not move to do such a thing. The king rewarded him with a robe of honor and an increase in his salary. And so it went with each of the 50 or 60 courtiers. One by one they imitated the minister and the chamberlain, and received new wealth. Then the pearl was given to Ayaz. Can you say how splendid this is? It's more than I can say. Then break it, the second into tiny pieces. Ayaz had a dream about this, and he'd hidden 2 stones in his sleeve. He crushed the pearl to powder between them. As Joseph at the bottom of the well listened to this end of his story, so such listeners understand success and unsuccess as one thing. Don't worry about forms. Someone wants your horse. Let him have it. Horses are for hurrying ahead of the others. The court assembly screamed at the recklessness of Ayaz. How could you do that? What the king says is worth more than any pearl. I honor the king, not some colored stone. The princes immediately fell on their knees and put their foreheads on the ground. Their sighs went up like a smoke cloud asking forgiveness. The king gestured to his executioner as though to say, Take out this trash. Ayaz sprang forward. Your mercy makes them bow like this. Give them their lives. Let them keep hoping for union with you. They see their forgetfulness now, as the drunken man did when he said, I didn't know what I was doing. And then someone pointed out, but you invited that forgetfulness into you. You drank it. There was a choice. They know deeply now how imitation lulled them to sleep. Don't separate yourself from them. Look at all their heads against the floor. Raise their faces into yours. Let them wash in your cool washing place. Ayaz in his speech always get to this point, and then the pen breaks. How can a saucer contain the ocean? The drunks beat their cups, but you poured that wine. Ayaz said, You picked me to crush the pearl. Don't punish the others for my drunken obedience. Punish them when I'm sober, because I'll never be sober again. Whoever bows down like they are bowing down and will not rise up in this old self again. Like a gnat in your buttermilk, they've become your buttermilk. The mountains are trembling. Their map and compass are the lines in your palm. Husam. I need 100 mouths to say this, but I only have this one. 100,000 impressions from the spirit are wanting to come through here. I feel stunned in this abundance, crushed and dead. Put this design in your carpet. Spiritual experience is a modest woman who looks lovingly at only one man. It's a great river where ducks live happily and crows drown. The visible bowl of form contains food that is both nourishing and a source of heartburn. There is an unseen presence we honor that gives the gifts. Your water, where the millstone. Your wind, where dust blown up into shapes. Your spirit, where the opening and closing of our hands, where the clarity. We are this language that tries to say it. You are joy. We are all the different kinds of laughing. Any movement or sound is a profession of faith, as the millstone grinding is explaining how it believes in the river. No metaphor can say this, but I can't stop pointing to the beauty. Every moment and place says, put this design in your carpet. Like the shepherd in Book 2, who wanted to pick the lice off God's robe and stitch up God's shoes, I want to be in such a passionate adoration that my tent gets pitched against the sky. Let the beloved come and sit like a guard dog in front of the tent. When the ocean surges, don't let me just hear it. Let it splash inside my chest. Halaj. Halaj said what he said and went to the origin through the hole in the scaffold. I cut a cap's worth of cloth from his robe, and it swamped over me from head to foot. Years ago I broke a bunch of roses from the top of his wall. A thorn from that is still in my palm, working deeper. From Halaj I learned to hunt lions, but I became something hungrier than a lion. I was a frisky colt. He broke me with a quiet hand on the side of my head. A person comes to him naked. It's cold. There's a fur coat floating in the river. Jump in and get it, he says. You dive in. You reach for the coat. It reaches for you. It's a live bear that has fallen in upstream, drifting with the current. How long does it take? Halaj yells from the bank. Don't wait, you answer. This coat has decided to wear me home. A little part of a story, a hint. Do you need long sermons on Halaj? You three. My love wanders the rooms, melodious, flute notes, plucked wires full of a wine the Magi drank on the way to Bethlehem. We are three. The moon comes from its quiet corner, puts a pitcher of water down in the center, the circle of surface flames. One of us kneels to kiss the threshold. One drinks with wine flames playing over his face. One watches the gathering and says to any cold onlookers, this dance is the joy of existence. I am filled with you. Skin, blood, bone, brain, and soul. There's no room for lack of trust or trust. Nothing in this existence but that existence. The Sheikh. I have such a teacher. On the Sheikh. The existence of the beloved is not provable, nor is it fantasy. The friend, as Rumi usually calls this presence within and infinitely beyond the senses, is elusive and nearer than the big vein on your neck. You need a mirror to see it. The Sheikh is a mirror, a reminder of that presence in a cook. The understanding that comes through a sheikh gives nourishment and transforming energy to many. Rumi's image of a disciple is a chickpea that sprouts and enjoys the rainy garden of sexual pleasure. It matures to its hardened form, then gets picked and thrown in the cooking pot. The cook's tending is careful and constant, and in Rumi's case, garrulous. Gradually, the disciple softens and takes on flavors the cook adds. Eventually, he or she becomes tasty enough to be appealing to those who in the Sufi tradition are called the true human beings. So the chickpea moves from garden to cooking pot to a taste for the cook, finally to become sustenance for a mysterious community. Chickpea to cook. A chickpea leaps almost over the rim of the pot where it's being boiled. Why are you doing this to me? The cook knocks him down with the ladle. Don't you try to jump out. You think I'm torturing you. I'm giving you flavor. so you can mix with spices and rice and be the lovely vitality of a human being. Remember when you drank rain in the garden, that was for this. Grace first, sexual pleasure, then a boiling new life begins, and the friend has something good to eat. Eventually the chickpea will say to the cook, "Boil me some more. Hit me with the skimming spoon. I can't do this by myself. I'm like an elephant that dreams of gardens back in Hindustan and doesn't pay attention to his driver. You're my cook, my driver, my way into existence. I love your cooking." The cook says, "I was once like you, fresh from the ground. Then I boiled in time, and boiled in the body, 2 fierce boilings. My animal soul grew powerful. I controlled it with practices. I boiled some more, and boiled once beyond that, and became your teacher." I have such a teacher. Last night my teacher taught me the lesson of poverty, having nothing and wanting nothing. I am a naked man standing inside a mine of rubies, clothed in red silk. I absorbed the shining, and now I see the ocean, billions of simultaneous motions moving in me. A circle of lovely, quiet people becomes the ring on my finger, then the wind and the thunder of rain on the way. I have such a teacher. Sublime generosity. I was dead, then alive, weeping, then laughing. The power of love came into me, and I became fierce like a lion, then tender like the evening star. He said, "You're not mad enough. You don't belong in this house." I went wild and had to be tied up. He said, "Still not wild enough to stay with us." I broke through another layer into joyfulness. He said, "It's not enough." I died. He said, "You're a clever little man, full of fantasy and doubting." I plucked up my feathers and became a fool. He said, "Now you're the candle for this assembly." But I'm no candle, look. I'm scattered smoke. He said, "You are the sheikh, the guide. But I am not a teacher. I have no power." He said, "You already have wings. I cannot give you wings." But I wanted his wings. I felt like some flightless chicken. Then new events said to me, "Don't move. A sublime generosity is coming towards you." And old love said, "Stay with me." I said, "I will." You are the fountain of the sun's light. I'm a willow shadow on the ground. You make my raggedness sulky. The soul at dawn is like darkened water that slowly begins to say, "Thank you, thank you." Then at sunset again Venus gradually changes into the moon, and then the whole night sky. This comes of smiling back at your smile. The chess master says nothing, other than moving the silent chess piece. That I am part of the ploys of this game makes me amazingly happy. Like this. If anyone asks you how the perfect satisfaction of all our sexual wanting will look, lift your face and say, "Like this." When someone mentions the gracefulness of the night sky, climb up on the roof and dance and say, "Like this." If anyone wants to know what spirit is, or what God's fragrance means, lean your head toward him or her. Keep your face there close. Like this. When someone quotes the old poetic image about clouds gradually uncovering the moon, slowly loosen knot by knot the strings of your robe. Like this. If anyone wonders how Jesus raised the dead, don't try to explain the miracle. Kiss me on the lips. Like this. Like this. When someone asks what it means to die for love, point here. If someone asks how tall I am, frown and measure with your fingers the space between the creases on your forehead. This tall. The soul sometimes leaves the body, then returns. When someone doesn't believe that, walk back into my house like this. When lovers moan, they're telling our story, like this. I'm a sky where spirits live. Stare into this deepening blue, while the breeze says a secret, like this. When someone asks what there is to do, light the candle in this hand like this. How did Joseph's scent come to Jacob? Ooh. How did Jacob's sight return? Ooh. A little wind cleans the eyes like this. When Shams comes back from Tabriz, he'll put just his head around the edge of the door to surprise us. Like this. A bowl. Imagine the time the particle from you returns where it came from. The family darling comes home. Wine, without being contained in cups, is handed around. A red glint appears in a granite outcrop, and suddenly the whole cliff turns to ruby. At dawn I walked along with a monk on his way to the monastery. We do the same work, I told him. We suffer the same. He gave me a bowl, and I saw. The soul has this shape. Shams, you that teach us and actual sunlight, help me now, being in the middle of being partly in myself, partly outside.